What if your greatest fears were not prophecies of the future, but merely echoes of unexamined assumptions from your past? The Stoics teach that self-awareness is the ultimate weapon against fear. This video provides a 7-step drill to illuminate your own mind and dissolve the shadows. What are you afraid of, really? Stoic Drill, Self-Awareness, compiled and published by Stoic Power. Lesson 1. Fear begins with assumptions. Imagine a person entering a completely dark and unfamiliar room. They assume the room is cluttered, filled with unseen obstacles, sharp corners, and treacherous dangers. Compelled by this assumption, they move slowly, hesitatingly, their body tensed for a painful impact. Their journey across the room is an agonizing experience, filled with anxiety and imagined threats. But then, a friendly hand finds the wall and flips on the light switch, revealing the truth. The room is completely empty. The entire experience of suffering was created not by the reality of the room, but by the assumption brought into it. We navigate so much of our lives like that person in the dark room. We approach new challenges, new relationships, and new opportunities carrying a host of unexamined and usually negative assumptions. We assume we will fail. We assume we will be rejected. We assume the worst will happen. And we tense our souls in anticipation of a collision that exists only in our minds. The fundamental problem is that these assumptions, lurking unseen in the subconscious mind, are the invisible seeds from which the entire forest of fear grows. They create a powerful and often tragic self-fulfilling prophecy. Because we assume a situation is dangerous or destined to end badly, we approach it with fear, hesitation, and a defensive crouch. This very posture makes a negative outcome far more likely. We are tripped up not by the actual obstacles in the room, but by our own fearful, clumsy navigation, which is a direct result of our assumption that obstacles are everywhere. Fear, we must understand, does not begin with the external event. It begins with the internal assumption. The transformative solution is to adopt the Stoic practice of radical self-awareness, beginning with the rigorous discipline of identifying and questioning your own initial assumptions before they take root. It is the courageous act of refusing to stumble blindly in the dark, and instead insisting on finding the light switch before you take a single decisive step. As the great Stoic teacher Epictetus taught, it is not things that disturb us, but our judgments or assumptions about things. Fear is not an external force that attacks us. It is an internal process that we initiate with a thought. By isolating the initial assumption, you can hold it up to the bright light of your reason and see it for what it truly is: a thought, a guess, a story, and not a fact. This practice cuts fear off at the very root. It prevents the tiny seed of a negative assumption from ever sprouting into the full-grown, thorny tree of anxiety and panic. It restores your sense of agency and allows you to approach situations with a clarity and confidence that is based on reality, not on fearful guesswork. Your actionable step is to become an assumption hunter. The next time you feel fear or hesitation about a future event, a job interview, a first date, a difficult conversation, stop, take out a journal, and ask yourself, what am I assuming to be true about this situation? What am I assuming about the final outcome? What am I assuming about my own abilities? And what am I assuming about the other people involved? List every single assumption you can find, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. You will be stunned to see how many of your fears are built upon a foundation of completely unproven, unsupported, and often irrational assumptions. Once these assumptions are dragged from the darkness of your mind and exposed on the written page, they begin to wither and lose their power. Your call to action for this week is to be the assumption hunter. Before you enter any dark room in your life, pause at the threshold and identify the assumptions you are carrying with you. Refuse to stumble. Turn on the light. Once we have exposed our hidden assumptions, we often find a more specific, more focused enemy hiding just beneath them. Our next lesson will teach you how to confront this enemy directly by giving it a precise name, a crucial step in conquering it. To continue this essential Stoic drill, subscribe to Stoic Power and commit to hunting your own assumptions. Lesson 2. Naming your real enemy. Imagine a medieval city under siege. The citizens are terrified. They whisper stories of a great, shadowy enemy at their gates, a beast of immense power, a nameless horror that will surely bring about their doom. This namelessness is a weapon in itself, allowing the citizens' fear to grow boundlessly, to imagine a threat far greater than any real-world army. The wise leader of the city, however, knows that the first step to any viable defense is accurate intelligence. She sends out her most trusted scouts, not to fight, but simply to observe and report. They return not with tales of a supernatural beast, but with a precise description. It is an army of 5,000 soldiers, with 3 siege towers and a single battering ram. The enemy, once a nameless horror, is now a defined logistical problem. The fear in the city lessens, replaced by a sense of purpose. The enemy has been named. The great problem with our own inner state of fear is that it so often remains a nameless, shapeless anxiety. We feel a general sense of dread about our health, a vague but powerful fear of social situations, or a persistent worry about our finances. These fears are like the besieging army before the scouts have returned. Because they are vague and undefined, they are able to expand to fill every corner of our minds. A nameless fear has no boundaries. It is a diffuse, free-floating toxin that can poison our sleep, our relationships, and our ability to focus, making us feel perpetually under siege without ever knowing exactly what it is we are fighting. The transformative solution is to act as the wise leader of your own inner city, and to send out the scouts of your rational mind to get a clear and precise identification of the enemy. It is the crucial practice of naming your fear, of translating a vague feeling of dread into a clear, concrete, and specific sentence. You must force yourself to move from the amorphous terror of failure to the specific, named fear of, I am afraid that if this business venture does not succeed within the first year, I will have to use my personal savings to cover the losses, and I will feel embarrassed in front of my family. That is not a nameless beast. That is an army of a specific size with specific equipment. It is a problem that can be planned for. The core idea here is that the human mind cannot effectively strategize against a phantom. A vague fear is an unsolvable mystery. A named fear, however, becomes a set of challenges that can be met with practical solutions. The benefit is an immediate and dramatic reduction in the emotional intensity of the fear. Naming the fear is a profound act of containment. It built a fence around it, transforming it from a terrifying, all-encompassing entity into a manageable-sized problem that your rational mind can now begin to solve. Your actionable step is to conduct a fear inquisition. Take the most dominant and recurring fear you are currently experiencing. Your task is to put it on trial and force it to reveal its true name. Take your journal and complete the following sentence with as much brutal honesty and specificity as you can summon. The specific, concrete, real-world outcome I am truly afraid of is, do not allow yourself to use vague, abstract words like rejection or failure. Define what those words actually mean in this specific context. For example, instead of I'm afraid of rejection, it becomes, I am afraid of asking that specific person out on a date and hearing them say the word no, and then feeling a hot sensation of shame in my face for approximately 10 minutes. That is the enemy, named and specified. As you practice this fear inquisition, you will feel a sense of clarity and empowerment that is almost startling. You will stop fighting shadows and will be able to face the real, defined challenges in your life with a new sense of purpose. You will find that many of your so-called enemies, once clearly identified, are far less formidable than you had imagined. Your call to action for this week is to be the wise leader of your own mind. Find your largest, most shapeless fear, send out the scouts, and give your real enemy a name. We have now named the enemy at the gates. But often, our fear is amplified by our desperate and illusory attempts to control things we cannot. Our next lesson will explore the profound illusion that lies behind our need for control, and how letting go is an act of supreme power. To learn this liberating secret, subscribe to Stoic Power and like this video. Lesson 3. The illusion behind control. Imagine a man in a small rowboat caught in the midst of a powerful swirling ocean current. He is terrified, and in his panic, he believes that the only way to be safe is to control the ocean itself. He rows with all his might, first in one direction, then another, trying to force the vast, indifferent current to bend to his will. His struggle is immense, his effort is heroic, but his task is impossible. He exhausts his strength, breaks his oars, and fills his boat with water, all while being carried along by the very current he is trying to fight. His suffering comes not from the current itself, but from his illusory belief that he can and must control it. The Stoics teach that we are all that man in the rowboat, and the uncontrollable events of life are that powerful ocean current. The fundamental conflict that generates so much of our anxiety is our deep-seated illusion of control. We believe that our peace of mind and our safety are dependent on our ability to manage and manipulate the world around us. The opinions of others, the outcome of our projects, the health of our bodies, the state of the economy. Because these things are, by their very nature, subject to forces far beyond our command. This desperate need for control guarantees a life of frustration, exhaustion, and fear. We live with the constant, gnawing anxiety that the current is about to pull us in a direction we do not want to go, and we believe that our only option is to row harder against it. The transformative solution is to shatter the illusion of control by embracing one of the most powerful and practical of all Stoic doctrines, the dichotomy of control. It is the mental discipline of constantly dividing every situation into two simple categories: that which is within our complete control, and that which is not. The Stoics taught that the only things truly and completely within our control are our own thoughts, our judgments, our intentions, and our actions, in essence, our own character. Everything else, what other people think, whether we get the job, whether the plane is on time, whether we get sick, is ultimately external and not up to us. The core idea is to stop rowing against the current and to instead focus all of our energy and skill on steering the boat. You cannot control the ocean, but you can control how you navigate it. You can control the set of your sail and the position of your rudder. By focusing exclusively on your own actions and responses, you find a source of power that is immune to the whims of fate. The benefit is a profound liberation. You release yourself from the impossible, exhausting task of trying to control the uncontrollable. Your fear subsides, replaced by a calm, focused sense of agency. You stop fighting the ocean and start sailing it. Your actionable step is to apply the control filter to any situation that is causing you fear. Take the fearful situation and run it through this two-part filter. First, ask yourself, what elements of this situation are completely outside of my control? Make a clear mental or written list, e.g., the interviewer's final decision, the number of other applicants, the state of the company's budget. Second, ask, what elements are completely within my control? E.g., the quality of my research and preparation, the professionalism of my appearance, the honesty and thoughtfulness of my answers, my choice to be grateful for the opportunity, regardless of the outcome. Once you have this clear separation, you must consciously choose to release your anxiety about the first list and pour every ounce of your energy into executing the second list with excellence and virtue. This practice will feel like setting down a mountain that you have been carrying on your back. It radically simplifies every problem and clarifies the path forward. It replaces helpless anxiety with purposeful, effective action. Your call to action for this week is to be the wise sailor. In every fearful situation, apply the control filter. Stop trying to control the current and instead focus on mastering the art of steering your boat. We have learned to release our need to control the uncontrollable. But what about those things we truly dread? Our next lesson will teach the counterintuitive Stoic practice of mentally embracing the very things we fear most in order to rob them of their power. To learn this advanced technique for fearlessness, make sure you are subscribed to the Stoic Power channel. Lesson 4. Accepting what you dread most. Consider a warrior who is preparing to face a fearsome and legendary dragon. For weeks, he stays in his village, trying not to think about the dragon, pushing away any image of its fire and claws. His fear grows with each passing day, feeding on the unknown and the avoided. But then, he adopts a new strategy. He goes to the old storytellers and asks them to describe the dragon in excruciating detail. He spends his days meditating on the dragon's fiery breath, its immense strength, its terrifying roar. He mentally walks himself through the battle, even imagining his own defeat. He becomes so intimately familiar with the dragon in his mind that when he finally walks to its lair, the real creature is almost a disappointment. It holds no surprises for him. He has already faced it 100 times in his imagination. He has accepted what he dreaded most. The profound problem that keeps us trapped in a state of chronic, low-grade fear is our constant effort to avoid thinking about the things we dread. We are terrified of poverty, so we never allow ourselves to truly contemplate what it would be like. We dread public speaking, so we push away any thought of standing in front of a crowd. We fear failure, so we refuse to even consider the possibility. This avoidance, however, does not make the fear go away. It does the opposite. It allows the feared object to grow into a monstrous, mythical dragon in the dark corners of our imagination. The things we refuse to look at hold the most power over us. The transformative solution is the powerful, albeit counterintuitive, Stoic practice known as premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This is not a call to be morbid or pessimistic. It is a highly strategic psychological exercise in fear inoculation. It is the practice of deliberately and regularly spending a short amount of time contemplating the very things you dread, not to wallow in despair, but to strip them of their power to shock and terrorize you. The core idea, as taught by Seneca, is that the blow that is foreseen is softened. By voluntarily visiting our fears in the calm, controlled environment of our own minds, we become familiar with them. We rehearse them. And familiarity breeds contempt, or at least a healthy dose of calm acceptance. The benefit is a dramatic reduction in your overall anxiety levels. You stop wasting energy trying to keep the dragon locked in the basement of your mind. You let it out, you look it in the eye, and you realize it is not nearly as terrifying as the shadows it was casting. You build a deep and resilient courage, knowing that you have already faced your worst fears and have a plan to deal with them. Your actionable step is to schedule a dread rehearsal. Choose one of your named fears from Lesson 2. Set aside 10 undisturbed minutes. For those 10 minutes, you are going to sit quietly and vividly imagine that the thing you dread has happened. If you fear losing your job, imagine being called into the office, the conversation, the feeling of walking out the door for the last time. Allow yourself to feel the initial sting. Then, spend the second half of the time imagining your response. You would update your resume, you would call your network, you would cut your budget, you would discover your own resilience. You would survive. You are proving to your own nervous system that even the dreaded outcome is a manageable life event, not the end of the world. This practice will feel uncomfortable, but it is one of the most liberating things you can do. It is like getting a vaccine for fear. A small, controlled exposure prevents a catastrophic infection later on. Your call to action for this week is to be the dragon tamer. Schedule one dread rehearsal. Look your most feared dragon directly in the eye and watch it shrink before your very mind. We have now learned to accept what we dread. This often involves accepting discomfort. Our next lesson will focus on how to transform our relationship with discomfort itself, turning it from something we fear into a tool for building discipline. To learn this crucial skill, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Stoic Power. Lesson 5. Turning discomfort into discipline. Imagine a lump of raw, unrefined iron ore. It is brittle, shapeless, and relatively weak. To transform this ore, into a blade of legendary Damascus steel, it must be subjected to an intense and prolonged process of discomfort. It must be heated in a scorching fire, beaten repeatedly with a heavy hammer, and then plunged into cold water. This process is violent and stressful, but it is this very discomfort that aligns the ore's internal structure, purges its impurities, and forges it into something of incredible strength, beauty, and resilience. The Stoics understood that the human character is exactly like that lump of iron ore. It is through the voluntary embrace of discomfort that we forge ourselves into something strong and disciplined. The universal human problem is that we are biologically and culturally programmed to avoid discomfort at all costs. We seek pleasure, ease, and convenience as our highest goods. We see any form of discomfort, physical, emotional, or psychological, as a sign that something is wrong, as something to be immediately eliminated. This deep-seated aversion to discomfort makes us incredibly fragile. We become like the unrefined iron ore, easily broken by the slightest pressure. Our fear of discomfort is often the very thing that prevents us from doing the hard, necessary things that lead to growth, success, and fulfillment. We don't go to the gym because we fear the discomfort of sore muscles. We don't have the difficult conversation because we fear the discomfort of emotional friction. We have become soft, and our softness makes us afraid. The transformative solution is to radically reframe your relationship with discomfort. It is the Stoic practice of not just tolerating, but actively seeking out small, manageable doses of voluntary hardship as a form of training. It is the understanding that discomfort is the hammer and the fire that forge the steel of your discipline. The core idea is that you can build your tolerance for life's inevitable, involuntary hardships by practicing with small, voluntary ones. By deliberately choosing to take a cold shower, to fast for a day, or to do a workout that pushes you to your limits, you are training your mind and body to endure. You are teaching yourself on a deep, cellular level that you are not a fragile creature who needs constant comfort, but a resilient being who can withstand hardship. The benefit of this practice is the development of an iron will and a dramatic reduction in your fear of life's challenges. When you know, through experience, that you can handle voluntary discomfort, you become far less afraid of the involuntary discomfort that life will inevitably send your way. Your actionable step is to choose your discipline drill. Look at your life and identify one small, safe, but uncomfortable action you can take every day for the next week. It could be taking the stairs instead of the elevator. It could be waking up 30 minutes earlier than you need to. It could be ending your daily shower with 60 seconds of cold water. The specific drill does not matter as much as the consistency and the intention behind it. Your intention is not to punish yourself, but to consciously use the sensation of discomfort as a tool to forge your discipline. When you feel the discomfort, you will silently say to yourself, "This is the feeling of getting stronger." This practice will have a powerful, clarifying effect on your entire life. You will build a momentum of self-mastery that will spill over into every other area. You will find that your capacity to handle stress and to persevere through difficulty increases dramatically. Your call to action is to be the blacksmith of your own character. Choose your discipline drill for this week. Step into the fire, pick up the hammer, and turn your discomfort into discipline. We are now learning to use discomfort to build discipline. But what happens when we face the acute, sharp sensation of pain itself? Our next lesson will focus on how to face pain directly, without the secondary layer of panic. To master this vital skill, subscribe to Stoic Power. Lesson 6. Facing pain without panic. Imagine a patient in a physician's office who is about to receive a necessary but painful injection. The first patient sees the needle and their mind is flooded with panic. Tense their entire body, they hold their breath, and they fixate on the anticipated pain. Their panic and resistance make the experience infinitely worse. The tensed muscle makes the injection more painful, and their mental anguish is immense. The second patient, trained in Stoic thought, also sees the needle. They acknowledge that there will be a moment of sharp physical discomfort, but instead of panicking, they consciously choose to relax their body, to breathe slowly and deeply, and to focus their mind on the knowledge that this pain is temporary and ultimately beneficial. They face the pain without the secondary, self-inflicted layer of panic. The fundamental human problem when confronted with pain, whether it is the physical pain of an injury or the emotional pain of a harsh criticism, is that we immediately add a second layer of suffering on top of it. This second layer is panic. It is the catastrophic story our mind tells us about the pain. This is unbearable. I can't stand this. This will never end. This mental panic creates a physiological stress response, a tensed body, a racing heart, that actually amplifies the original pain signal. We are caught in a feedback loop where the pain creates panic, and the panic makes the pain worse. We are not just suffering from the pain. We are suffering from our own panicked reaction to the pain. The transformative solution is to learn how to separate the clean, objective sensation of pain from the dirty, subjective story of panic. It is the mental discipline of facing the raw sensation directly and with a kind of scientific curiosity, while refusing to assent to the catastrophic narrative that your mind wants to build around it. The core Stoic idea here is that pain is just a sensation, a neutral signal from your nervous system. It is our judgment that this sensation is terrible or unbearable that turns it into suffering. Marcus Aurelius would remind himself to break a painful experience down into its component parts, to analyze it objectively, and to remind himself that no single part was in itself intolerable. The benefit of this practice is immense. It allows you to endure necessary pain with a profound sense of calm and control. It dramatically reduces your overall experience of suffering and makes you far less afraid of the inevitable pains that life entails. Your actionable step is the practice of objective sensation analysis. The next time you experience a moment of pain, whether it is stubbing your toe or feeling the sting of an insult, your task is to immediately become a detached scientist observing a phenomenon. Instead of getting lost in the "ouch, this is awful" narrative, you will internally describe the sensation in the most objective, neutral language possible. Ask yourself, where exactly is this sensation located? Is it sharp or dull? Is it hot or cold? Is it vibrating or steady? Is it increasing or decreasing? By focusing on the objective qualities of the sensation, you are occupying your mind with a rational task and preventing it from spiraling into the irrational story of panic. This practice will feel like discovering a hidden control panel for your own mind. You will realize that you have the power to modulate your own experience of pain. You will become more resilient, more stoic, and far less fearful of the physical and emotional discomforts that are a non-negotiable part of the human experience. Your call to action for this week is to be the calm scientist of your own sensations. When you experience pain, refuse to add the layer of panic. Analyze the sensation objectively and watch its power over you diminish. We have now learned to face even pain without panic. The final lesson is to understand how all these pieces come together to create true actionable courage in the world. Our final lesson will reveal that courage is simply self-awareness in action. To complete your Stoic drill, subscribe to Stoic Power and comment with your commitment to face pain without panic. Lesson 7. Courage is self-awareness in action. Imagine a master musician standing on a grand stage, about to perform a difficult and complex symphony before a massive audience. She feels the familiar sensations of nervousness, the adrenaline, the heightened senses. She is aware of all the things that could go wrong. But she is also aware of something more powerful: her years of practice, her intimate knowledge of the music, and her deep love for her craft. Her courage is not a blind absence of fear. It is a product of a profound and multi-layered self-awareness. She is aware of her fear, but she is also aware of her strength, and she consciously chooses to act from her strength, not her fear. This is the very essence of Stoic courage. It is not a feeling. It is self-awareness, consciously put into action. The final and most common misconception that holds us back is the belief that courage is a mysterious, heroic quality that one is either born with or not. We see courage as a grand, dramatic gesture performed in a moment of crisis. Because we do not feel courageous in our ordinary daily lives, we assume that we do not possess it. This leads to a passive waiting game, where we hope that if a crisis ever comes, some hidden reservoir of courage will magically appear. We fail to understand that courage is not a thing to be found, but a muscle to be built through the daily, undramatic practice of self-awareness. The final, transformative solution is to redefine courage itself. Courage, in the Stoic sense, is the logical and inevitable outcome of a life lived with rigorous self-awareness. It's the culmination of all the practices we have discussed in this drill. It is the courage that comes from knowing your assumptions, from naming your enemies, from understanding what you control, from accepting what you dread, from turning discomfort into discipline, and from facing pain without panic. When you know yourself this deeply, your weaknesses, your strengths, your values, your capabilities, you can move through the world with a quiet confidence that is the very definition of courage. The core idea is that self-awareness is the antidote to fear. Fear thrives in the darkness of the unexamined mind. Self-awareness is the act of turning on all the lights. When your inner world is fully illuminated, there are no dark corners left for the monsters of fear to hide in. The benefit is that courage ceases to be a rare and mysterious event and becomes your natural and default way of being. You act bravely not because you are trying to be a hero, but simply because you know yourself completely. Your final actionable step on this journey is the daily self-awareness review. At the end of each day, take 5 minutes for a quiet, honest reflection. This is not a time for self-criticism, but for gentle observation. Ask yourself, where did I act out of an unexamined assumption today? Did I allow a nameless fear to control me? Did I waste energy trying to control what was not mine to control? Where did I shrink from discomfort? When did I let panic amplify my pain? And then ask, where did I act with courage? Where was I self-aware? Where did I choose my reason over my reaction? This daily review is the process integrating your self-awareness, of learning from your mistakes, and of acknowledging your strengths. This practice will make self-awareness the central pillar of your life. It will accelerate your growth and build a deep, authentic, and unshakable foundation of courage. You will not need to hope for courage in a crisis because you will be building it consciously every single day. Your final call to action is to be the master musician of your own soul. Practice the daily self-awareness review. Know yourself, and from that knowledge, your courage will flow, not as a mighty roar, but as a quiet, beautiful, and unstoppable symphony. You have now completed the 7-step Stoic drill for deconstructing fear. By understanding that fear begins with assumption, and that courage is born from self-awareness, you have a practical toolkit to dismantle any anxiety at its source. This is the path to taking control of your mind and living without fear. Thank you for your dedication to this journey of self-mastery. If this video has provided you with a new lens through which to view your fears, please honor the wisdom by liking, commenting, and subscribing to Stoic Power for more tools to build a resilient and fearless life.